On the Daily Nation, if you were to head over to page 5, Date with Fate, we are expecting both Mr. Eugene Wamalwa, who is the CS of Devolution, Mr. Simon Chilugui, as well as Mr. Mwangi Kiunjuri, a date with DCI in regards to the 2 dams. Hopefully we will see a lot coming from that. My first question perhaps would be the fact that according to this article, the company that was listed that was supposed to do the construction of the dam, CMCD Revana, was kicked out of Nepal by their own government. In fact, according to an American rating agency known as the Standard & Poor, they rated them as junk category. Yet then again, our Kenyan government went ahead to give them a contract, a tender in regards to those 2 dams. My question perhaps, and I'll start with you, Member of Parliament from Makueni, yes, Dan Maanzo, in this regards. Why do you think that government officials, including civil servants and members of parliament, CSs and senators, should be excluded from government tenders, given if you look at the number of how many government officials have been involved in this specific report?
Yes, that's a very, very good question, because, you know, in Makueni we have the Thwake Dam, and we have been on it for 10 years now. In fact, at the recent rains, the engineers had to change the design of the river, because it was clear that probably if you do dams, the safety is an issue. If there is an earthquake, if there is a serious flooding, what's the safety of a dam? And one of the most important things in this regard is due diligence, which should involve Parliament. In fact, in the case of Makueni, the company which won the tender, Gezuba, I kept on asking the minister, which other dams have this company done? Who did it work with? Can we be able to see some? And I remember one time officers from Treasury had to travel all the way to China to see 1 or 2 projects this particular company has done. And it was in this category of these other dams which have perished or have not seen the light of day. So I think it's very important to check the companies thoroughly. And I'm also wondering, we have got very qualified engineers in our country. What has happened in the case of all these dams, including Thwake? We have just hired labor from another country to come and work, you know, for us, and we pay them handsomely. So I believe more investigations need to be done. Everything must be comped, and whoever has knew that this is a sham company and went on to pay them money, then it means they participated in a crime, they prepared a crime, and they wanted to benefit. So
yes or no? Do you think that government officials should be involved in tender processes?
Yes, they should. They should. And tender process has a law. And as a process, on top of that law be followed, there must be due diligence, so that we just don't look foolish. And we don't just lose money belonging to people in something we would have stopped. At whatever time, when you discover there is a problem, you know that tendering should be stopped, and no more money should be spent so that we don't lose money, and we don't end up with a dam, or we don't end up serving our own people. Somebody must recover this money.
Sure. And the question I want to ask you is that last week we saw the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, Henry Rotich, grilled for 2 consecutive days.
3 actually.
3.
It ended up in 3.
The reports are that he spilled the beans. But I saw a quotation yesterday of an advocate of the CS indicating that he wasn't there to fix anybody. Rather, he explained his responsibility, and where it was not his responsibility, then he attributed it to the right owner or handler. So as we continue with this, we are told that these 3 CSs will be before the DCI to investigate this. There has been a lot of political noise about this. Contestation between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. Are we getting somewhere in these investigations in your view?
First of all, I think you've mixed things here, because we're dealing with the issue of due diligence in terms of the dams, in terms of the procurement of the dams. And I remember Zinzi asking a question whether a government official should be involved in the tender process. I didn't quite understand your question. Do you mean should government officials be tendering
yes,
for...
if I have a company, yet I am a CS, a PS, a senator, whatever government of civil servant that I hold, should I be allowed to tender? Should I be in that process?
Absolutely not. I think that's a conflict of interest.
Right.
And in that case, you really have to divorce your interest from the interest of you know, of what do you call it, of the public. But in the event that you were once a minister in that ministry, nothing stops you from tendering. You know, I know people will come up and say, oh, maybe you know the people down there who can be able to influence, but you're in business at that point. But if you are the current sitting CS or the PS, you know, or anyone who works there, you should not be able to be tendering. You know, when you have these competitions, like sometimes Safaricom have these, you know, some of their competitions where people, you know, their staff and employees of Safaricom are not involved in the entire bidding process. So I think you've got to separate the two. Now, when it comes to the issue of the investigation of the CS and having stayed with Kinoti for over 3 hours, I believe this is a very complex contract, which, you know, spanned several years. You raise questions about the company. I think the company is called what? CMC de Rivera. We've read about the project that they abandoned in Nepal. So when you look at such a big project, some of the things that I question is as to why this company was paid so much money before even anything started. So if I was Kinoti, and I thank God, Kinoti is doing a very good job, and Kenyans should actually be praying for him. You know, instead of bringing in politics, they should really be supporting him to be able to do this work. I would follow the same procedure. I'll carry out extensive due diligence in trying to understand how this process was, how this, what do you call it, tender was awarded. I would question all the cabinet secretaries who are involved. I would question all the permanent secretaries, current and former, so that I can be able to follow the trail. I would also be able to follow the money trail, because it's very easy. You know, if I send you money, I can be able to follow that money and how that money left from one account to another. And then we can be able to separate facts from fiction. Because I know my colleague Morcoment has talked a lot about this issue being politicized, rather than actually fighting corruption. So I think the only way to be able to find the truth is if we allow the process. And if you look at historically in this country, we've got governors who are sitting currently, who were former cabinet secretaries, who went through the process. Waiguru is an example. She was a CS. You know, she was accused of NYS. She was accused of all so many things. You know, and I'm not saying she was guilty or not guilty, but if you allow the process to take place, then we can be able to eventually find where the truth is.
Okay. And Senator Cherargei, there has been this noise about people feeling like there's a target towards a certain part of the country, and specifically on the deputy president. Are you part of those people that feel so, and what do you make of this investigation into Arola and Kimarel dams?
Thank you. I think this issue of dams is becoming very interesting with time. I remember last year towards the end of the year, I was one of the first people to question on how the fight against corruption was being done. And unfortunately, it has been weaponized, and there is a political witch hunt, because it cannot be coincidence that we are talking about Twake Dam, we are talking about Karmenu, I have Keben Dam in Nandi, Yuka, there is Itare, there is Posta in, and many other 22 projects. I agree that the fight against corruption should be done with a lot of energy. Number two, for example, in this issue of dams that we have, is that there should be due diligence. We should look at the advice of the Attorney General before this contract was being executed. What did the Attorney General's office do in terms of legal advice on this contract that we're having? But now it is like the DCI and investigative agencies are shooting in the dark. Because, for example, if you bring somebody,
they're already questioning people.
They are questioning it. Is if I can tell you, if there was any serious evidence, some people would have been charged in court. Remember the issue of May Saga, the PS Lesiamba and others are in court. Yeah, they are in court. They are facing charges. The issue of NYS, they are facing charges. Some of the people that were involved in the scandal. So in this process, I think this thing has been lost in political aspects, because now it is more of politics than any serious charges that we have. And when you look at the investigative agencies,
let me cut it short.
When you look at investigative agencies that compete for national headlines and trending in social media, vis-a-vis charging people in court of law, then it's very unfortunate, because finally, before you ask a question, it seems like there's a scheme by particular individuals, especially the sponsors and perpetuators of handshake, to undermine development projects in specific regions. And they are succeeding because that is why they are targeting Rift Valley only projects that are
so
there.
So you feel the handshake is undermining the war on corruption?
Of course, it is not undermining. It is one of the ways that the handshake is being used for political expediency and for succession policies of 2022.
So Senator Cherargei, where do you put politics? Is the DCI politicking, or it is you politicians?
No, it is the investigative agencies are being used for political expediency. They are just fighting the wars that they don't know.
Who is using them?
And of course, of course, I'm answering. The perpetrators of a handshake, especially led by Raila Odinga, and he said he would come to destroy Jubilee and split Jubilee. And we know he's a master of selling deceit, deception, and fear, and he's almost succeeding. Because all these issues are being choreographed in a manner that we are no longer fighting corruption. We are targeting one individual.
But let me ask you a specific question. Do you think there's an issue to be investigated in regards to Arola and Kimorel dams?
I don't think there is an issue.
So you don't think it needs to be investigated?
In fact, I can tell you, even if we put enough resources and everything, I can tell you, they will come out nothing out of it.
Okay, so Honorable Maanzo, Senator Ledama was saying, you know, the DCA is doing a fantastic job.
Yes, he is.
Whereas the DP, William Ruto, is saying that the DPP and the DCI are both playing politics, and that the fact that the DCI's findings over the dam, and I quote, is a lie. It's a scam that is a lie.
First, I want to say that for this amount of money to be lost, it is well planned. People knew very well what they are doing, and obviously there were kickbacks. By the time money leaves Treasury, first and foremost must be budgeted, and it must go through respective ministry. This is now Ministry of Water, and that's why the three CSs are in trouble. Because at one point or another, this is a serious brief in their office.
So from where you sit,
yes.
Do you think that DPP, DCI, this is just all politics?
No, not at all. When serious money is lost, 7 billion shillings, 21 billion shillings is not little money.
But no one has said it is lost.
No. Please,
never been
give me an
lost.
opportunity. I am in the Thwake Dam, and I've been in the Thwake Dam over 10 years, and I know what we've gone through. In fact, during the tendering time, there were a lot of allegations of bribery.
Okay.
And these things run up to big offices. It is not with the small-time people. In fact, the tendering in this country is, you know, the officers in those offices are never allowed by people higher than them to do the right thing. And already it is choreographed which company is going to be wired this money and what is the kickback. So the DCI should not be cowed by anybody, and they should go to the full end. And whoever has benefited from these monies, because there are no dams there now, and there's no likelihood of any dams will ever be done, and Kenyans are suffering. Kenyans need water. So you can see in the case of Makueni, we have already paid 7 billion shillings. So we're following, we are aware. And we are telling these people, despite being paid 7 billion shillings, you have only done $500 million shillings work for the last 2 years. So you need to show us where the rest of the money is.
Senator Olekina, your colleague senator doesn't feel there's any need to do investigations. What do you take?
First of all, I just feel like we really need to divorce ourselves from this notion that the handshake is the one which is trying to destroy this country. The Bible says in John 1 verse 8, if we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. The truth of the matter is that corruption is eating every single bone marrow of this nation. And we have got to accept now that it is time for us to be able to face this monster as a nation. When my dear colleague, the distinguished senator from Nandi, says that the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga is the one who is coming in to destroy this, I actually fail to understand where he would come up with such ideas, given that when you look at the cabinet, the way it has been constituted, unfortunately, two communities are the ones who hold so many of these positions. So when these people are being investigated, if you look at now, for instance, the cabinet secretary for treasury is from one community, with the same cabinet secretary from water, with the same cabinet secretary from energy, with another cabinet. And then you go in the public, what do you call it, the permanent secretaries or the principal secretaries. So I think we've got to really think of ourselves as Kenyans and, you know, decide that if you have been caught in corruption, you should carry your own cross as a Kenyan, but not as a community of this, you know, this particular community. So I think we've got to really separate those two. Number one, when you look at what is happening currently in terms of the millions of shillings which are disappearing, and Kenyans are still lavishing in poverty. The last time I was in this show, I said that we've got two eras. Some of us live in the 21st century, others live in the 19th century. But the ones who are living in the 21st century seems to be, you know, sort of like making sure the ones who are in the 19th century never rise up. We've got all these serious issues. So I think, my dear colleague, it is time for you to now stay away from this issue. I think even if, and the president said this in Kirinyaga the other day, if you've got any evidence that Raila Amolo Odinga is the one who is creating all this problem, you know, go to DCI, take that evidence. But really putting in politics is making Kenyans continue to suffer instead of us getting the truth.